In this box is one of the smallest Game Boys I have ever seen in my life. And this thing is fully working, which just completely blows my mind. Look at the size of it. The packaging is fairly rudimentary, but that is because this thing is from Aliexpress. This seems to be something that someone has kind of made, like it's a bit of a homemade device. And when you scroll along the photos, the actual photos on the listing are like screenshots of a phone. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. But then when we take a look at the actual device itself, you're going to see some more of those kind of homemade telltale signs. But look at this. They've posted photos of it in its kind of stages of being assembled. There is absolutely no instructions with this thing whatsoever. So I have figured out a bunch of the controls, but I don't know if it's all of the controls. The description is just more photos of the device. There is no actual like instructions, and it didn't come with anything in the box other than the USB-C recharge. Actually, that's a good point. It's come with a micro USB cable, but it's USB-C to recharge it. I've only just noticed that now. That's interesting. It was £67, which is $85 nearly. $85 for this little thing. So, without any further ado, let us take a little look at it. It is tiny. Look at it compared to an actual original Game Boy. It's basically the same size as the screen, but it's absolutely adorable. The first thing we're going to do is take off this lanyard. The cartridge is removable as well, which blew my mind. I found that out today kind of by accident. So let me show you that in just a second. So here it is. It's absolutely adorable. The quality of it and the attention to detail is quite remarkable. What I was talking about that homemade sort of element of it though, is that you can kind of see on the bottom that it looks like it's been painted by hand, like spray paint. There's that USB-C port. There's nothing on the sides. And then, oh, actually, there's the little lanyard hole, if you're into that. And then you've got the power switch on the top, which is an actual power slider, exactly as it would have been on the original Game Boy, which is fully functional. On the front, you've obviously got your D-pad. The D-pad is a little bit bigger proportionally than it was on the original Game Boy, but you kind of can understand why, because it needs to actually be functional, which it is. It is fully functional. We've got our action buttons there, tiny little start and select nubs. We have a fully working speaker, which is actually in that speaker grill, which is so cool. And let me just show you this quickly because it is amazing. The power LED works, which is just so cool. And then the coolest thing, without a doubt, besides the fact that it is a fully working Game Boy, is just look at this. The cartridge comes out. And what is the cartridge, you might ask, besides the fact that it says game on it and even has the little details? It's the SD card. I mean, that has got to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Look at that. Brilliant. Right, let's turn this thing on. Now, as I said, I did have to figure out a lot of how this actually works because there was no instructions. And so I might be missing some things, but I've done my best. So the first thing which you should know if you decide to buy this is that to turn up the brightness, you press select and then you can go right and that's going to turn it up. And then to turn up the volume, it's up. And then obviously to brightness down, volume down, it's the opposite. But yeah, that is the first thing that I have learnt. And then if we just go into the first game here, so we've got Donkey Kong, so we'll just press A. So the other thing you can do is if you press that select button again and you press A or B, you can go through different color palettes. So although you can play these games with that color palette, I don't actually know if this plays Game Boy Color games. But what I'll do in a second is I'll put a Game Boy Color ROM on here and we can check and see if that works. But what I want to do is just show you some of the different games that are on here. So if you press the right arrow, you can go through all of the different games. I'm going to go through them all so that you can take a little look. But the SD card is obviously there so that you can load more games onto there if you wish. But there is a bunch of games. This is such a beautiful little device. It's a little bit gimmicky. You know, you're not going to want to sit and actually play on this for too long because it is going to get a little bit fiddly and finicky, which I suppose is a bit of a problem because this thing is £65 or $85, which is an insanely high amount of money for a bit of a gimmick, but you can see just how many games are on here. Supposedly there is 219 games on here, which is just absolutely insane. Let me show you a game which works really, really well. So this is Tetris DX, which is obviously a game that can be played on the Game Boy Color or the original Game Boy. So this one, it is just going to be playing it in black and white. But what we can do is, yeah, it's already selected a color palette, but you can go through and change the different color palettes. There's a black and white one, which is quite nice. I suppose for the sake of originality, we will go all the way over to the sort of pea green one. And yeah, you can see this works absolutely perfectly. It's flawless. I mean, it's just absolutely flawless. It's really, really hard to play on a screen this small through my viewfinder. But yeah, as you can see, it works absolutely perfectly. So where it's a bit of a problem is in a game like Link's Awakening. So if we go into this game, and it all looks absolutely great, it sounds perfect. Absolutely nothing wrong with the emulation. And if you look, there is actually a save already on here. So it kind of by default saves the games. That seems to be what happens. But one of the problems is because I haven't managed to find a menu, and trust me, I have tried every single button combination. And as I said, there is no instructions that came with this thing or on the Aliexpress listing. One of the issues is that for Link's Awakening, you have to press start and select and A and B in order to open up that little menu that allows you to save the game unless you die. So if you die, you can save the game, which is just crazy because that would just become quite annoying. So yeah, obviously if we go to save the game as we would on Link's Awakening, it's going to take us back out to the menu because start and select is what gets you back to the menu if you press it down at the same time, no matter what game you're in, no matter what you're doing. Start and select takes you back to the main menu. So that is going to be a bit of a problem with games like Link's Awakening, but everything else, I mean, everything else that doesn't require save states, which is going to be a bit of a problem with things like Pokemon. But Pokemon, you just press start and you go into the thing down the side. So Pokemon is going to work. It's really going to depend on the game. Look how loud that speaker gets. But it is such a cute little thing. There is no denying. It is adorable. Who is it for, though? I don't really know. It's just for people who like things. It's so hard to see what I'm doing through the little viewfinder of my camera. I mean, it's so awesome, though. Look at that. Is that not one of the coolest things ever? Okay, let me load a Game Boy Color ROM onto this thing and see if it plays Game Boy Color ROMs. It doesn't say on the listing, but then again, it says nothing on the listing. Okay, I have put a Game Boy Color ROM onto the micro SD card. Let's plug it in, turn it on, and see if it works. Oh look, it doesn't even show up. The Game Boy Color ROM has not even shown up. Wait. Well, that was anticlimactic. Let me just make sure it's not gone into alphabetical order somehow. Yep, there we go. It's definitely not on here. So for games like this, Mario, you're not going to really have any problems with saving. And for things like Pokemon as well, where the menu is accessible just by pressing start, and then you can go down and save. But yeah, with Link's Awakening, if you need to access that menu by doing any sort of button combination, it's going to just take you back to the menu. But I really don't think that that's going to be a problem or an issue that you're going to run into often. Because if you think about games like this or Tetris, you were never supposed to save them. They were just supposed to be turn them on, play them for a little while, and then turn them off again and see how high you can, what your high score can be. And then it doesn't play Game Boy Color games, so they're the more advanced games which required more saving and stuff like that. Oh, then you couldn't even do it if you wanted to. It is a Game Boy though. Maybe they'll come out with a little Game Boy Color version. That would be so cute. And maybe a Game Boy Advance version too. I'm gonna try and just complete this level, just so that I can feel that has not gone well. Oh, this has been a disaster. No, I can't even see the screen. That was an awful ending. I hope you have enjoyed. What a really, really cool, beautiful little product. Overpriced, not perfect, but what can you expect? It's homemade. It's pretty sick. And for anybody who wants to see it, I'm going to open this up right now. There it is. Oh, it's so cute. Look at the tiny little battery. Can we take it apart further? Yes, we can. There is one more little screw. Let me take that out. There's a tiny little Lego brick connector for the screen. We can just unattach that and then take the board out, hopefully. There we go. Look at that. It is so dinky. A tiny, tiny, tiny little Game Boy with the smallest surface mount switches ever. You have to admit, this is pretty sick. Very cool little device. If this video gets 1,000 likes, I will buy the Game Boy Advance equivalent. I don't know if it exists, but I'm sure it does. If not, Aliexpress will have something. I'll find it. I'll buy it. 1,000 likes. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know why you wouldn't have done that. That's just crazy. Bye.